When Madden 25 releases in a couple weeks, you might be surprised that some popular tactics from last year and previous years simply will not work anymore. That's because every year EA tries to attack what they call the meta, the things that are the most popular and the most effective. They try to neutralize them and make them more balanced. So if you're very reliant on these 5 things I'm about to go over, you may want to get yourself prepared because they're not going to work quite the same anymore. Number 1, overpowered abilities. Now every year in the game there are certain overpowered abilities, and usually the next year they get neutralized. Well, this year there's quite a few abilities that are just not going to work quite the same as they have last year or the year before. The main one being the knockout abilities. These have been the meta for about 2 years now. These are put on cornerbacks and safeties, and they will react really good to passes and they will knock them out very consistently, which has become very annoying. They said in their gameplay deep dive that these abilities are now far less likely to force knockouts late in a catch or after a catch has already been secured. So if you've been relying on knockout abilities, they're probably not going to be as useful as they used to be. Other abilities that have been limited are things like Secure Protector for your offensive line. This no longer guarantees to counteract pass rushing abilities. So now the pass rushing abilities are going to outweigh the pass protector abilities, so that's something to keep in mind. Run stuffing abilities like inside stuff and no outsiders will no longer function if the defensive team uses a pass commit. So before, you could pass commit your defense, but if you still have those run stopping abilities, they would still engage. That'll no longer happen. And maybe the biggest one of all are the velocity abilities like set feet lead and pass lead elite. These will now have a reduced pass velocity bonus, meaning they still will give you a little bit of a boost, but not quite as much as they did in the past, and that really can change the dynamic of the entire game. Really quickly, before we move on to the rest of the list, I do want to mention that we are still sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. If you like sports and you like winning money, then you've got to be on Underdog Fantasy playing their pick'em game. Basically, all you have to do is pick higher or lower on a wide variety of player stats, and if they hit, you can win some good money. And if you sign up using my code RAY, R-A-Y, they're going to give you up to $250 in bonus cash to play with, and they'll give you a free play at sign up, like a Caitlin Clark to get a single point, or a Shohei Ohtani to get a single base appearance, or during football season, they'll give you a QB to get a single yard. Basically, a free play that's going to help you win no matter what. And with football season coming up, there's going to be a ton of great specials coming up as college and NFL is about to start, so make sure to sign up using code RAY to claim those bonuses. Number 2, the overpowered juke move. Now, if you played Madden 24, you know that the best move in the game was the basic juke. You would let off the sprint button, hit the juke, and you would fake out the defense pretty much every time. Only a really good user defender could have the skill to stop this, and it did create a bit of a skill gap, but it was definitely pretty unrealistic just how consistent it was. Now, I'm definitely not saying that you won't be able to successfully juke in this game. You definitely will, and when I was able to play it early, you could still fake people out with jukes, but it was nothing like it was in 24. It was not nearly as easy, and it was not nearly as guaranteed. So if you're somebody that is heavily reliant on the juke, just know going into Madden 25, it's not going to be nearly as easy for you to fake people out. Hey, if you're still here and you're not subscribed, you might as well go ahead and subscribe, turn the bell icon on, because I'm going to have some gameplay coming for you guys soon, and some other exclusive videos for Madden 25 that you're not going to want to miss out on. And I'll be giving away copies soon to subscribers as well, and you might be able to get a free copy of the game. Number 3, relying on zig routes. Now, let me explain here, because zig routes are still a phenomenal route. They do a great job versus man coverage. They do a good job at staying underneath zone coverage. They're great versus the blitz. The route itself is still phenomenal. The issue here is you can't rely on it quite as much because the hot route wheel has changed in Madden. A lot of people like to not necessarily build their offense around zig routes, but zig routes are a very important part of their offense. A lot of people like to hot route these zig routes on most of their plays. They like to have them as a check down or a quick hot read versus a blitz, because a lot of people do like to man blitz, and a zig route is the perfect route to beat that because it's very quick hitting and it creates decent separation. But with them updating the hot route wheel this year, everything has changed. They've now added post routes and corner routes to the hot route wheel, but in order to do that, they removed a couple routes, and one of them was the zig. So now in order to get the zig hot route, you actually have to have a QB with hot route master, or you have to have a wide receiver that has an apprentice ability that gets him extra hot routes. So if you're using a team like that, so for example, the Chiefs would be able to do this, then you can still use it. But the majority of the teams in the game, you won't be able to rely on this because you simply will not be able to hot route them anymore, which I honestly don't like. I wish that they would kind of take the system that college football has, where every QB has 12 hot routes. I feel like that's the best way to go, but they didn't quite do that with Madden 25. Number 4, spamming hit sticks. Now, one of the biggest changes to gameplay this year was the revamped hit stick. Now, obviously, we got the boom tech, we got the tackling, the ball carrier stuff, and all of that kind of plays into this along with the hit stick. Now, hit sticks are definitely still effective. They can cause fumbles. If you time them right, they can cause some vicious hits, but you can't really quite spam them like you've been able to in the past because now they are much harder to time. And with the new ball carrier system, if you're trying to hit stick somebody that outweighs you, you're probably not going to be very successful. Now, in previous Madden games, of course, they have always kind of adjusted the hit stick a little bit. Some years it was as easy as ever to do, and then other years they made the timing window a little bit harder. But we've never seen as much of a change as we've seen this year. The timing is significantly harder than it used to be, and especially if you're using a player that doesn't have high hit power. If you do have high hit power, your timing window is a little bit easier. But again, in the past, you could pretty much hit stick the same with any player in any situation and have pretty good success. Now, if you want to hit stick, the angle is very important, the player you're using and the player you're trying to hit stick is very important, and the timing is critical. If you're trying to do like these side hit sticks or angled hit sticks and you don't have an elite player, the ball carrier is going to bounce off of you this year and you're going to give up bigger yards. If you mistime it even by the slightest little bit, they're going to break the tackle or you're going to miss completely. So I recommend when you go into this game, it's probably better for you to go with secure tackles, more wrap-up style tackles, instead of trying to hit stick too often because you're going to give up a lot more yards this year, I believe, if you try to hit stick every play, unless you're just an elite player. Number 5, you can't play the same old way. Now, this is a really important one, the most important one of this whole video, and this involves numerous things. Now, when I say you can't just play the same old way, this is going to be somewhat dependent on who you're playing. But what I mean by this is we've gotten a whole suite of new gameplay features that are completely changing how this game is going to be played. Let's talk about the first example. If you want to just throw any old blitz out there every play and spam the same blitz over and over, not going to be quite as easy anymore. Unless you're a really good player and you know how to maneuver around the game and manipulate things, sure, those people exist. But the average online player, if you're just trying to throw any old cover zero blitz out there and just spam it every play, well, we have a lot of new ways to block that this year. They've updated the blocking and they've given us more ways to slide and adjust our lines, making it easier to combat some of these blitzes that people like to just spam over and over. Another example of not being able to play the same old way. If you play someone that spams corner routes or crossing routes every year, sure, EA has tried to help us combat this over the years by giving us things like zone drops, but this year they gave us the biggest new feature in a long time, which is the switch stick, meaning that you can guard one route and as you see the corner or the crosser coming open, you can switch stick up to the nearest defender and begin breaking on the ball right before your opponent goes to throw it. So by the time your opponent releases the ball, you're already over there and you're bringing that cornerback or that safety down and you're breaking on the ball and you're able to pick it off. Whereas in old games, we know the computer wouldn't always quite break on it in time and they'd be too far out of the play to defend that corner. So if you're used to just spamming the same route to the sideline every play, if you're playing a good or very good player this year, they're going to switch stick over there and they're going to pick that off every time. So you're going to have to be more intentional and more thoughtful about what you're doing on the field. And on the flip side of the ball, you can now adjust your route stems to any depth. So if you're playing someone that sets their zone drops every play and just wants to drop them really far back, well, you can now send your routes even deeper if you want to combat that. So there's never been more of a chess match than what Madden 25 is going to be because there's a whole bunch of new gameplay features that allow both sides to switch things up. Now, if you want to know all of the gameplay details for Madden 25, make sure to check out this important video right here on the screen.